Welcome to Psychic Station. Every day, we're bombarded with messages about what we're supposed to do, how we're supposed to feel, and who we're meant to be. Society tells us that happiness is a product of success, that fulfillment comes from acquiring things, and that strength means never showing vulnerability. But if we take a moment to look beyond the surface, we begin to realize how these societal constructs not only limit us but, in many cases, suffocate us. Consider the pressures surrounding mental health. In a world that values productivity over well-being, the quiet struggle of mental health often gets overlooked. People feel the weight of an invisible burden, yet they're told to simply push through or get over it. It's a narrative that's not just damaging, it's dangerous. And it's one that leads many to silence their struggles, trapped in a cycle of shame. The stigma surrounding mental health prevents people from seeking help, and this is where society's failure is most evident. Take a moment to reflect on the countless individuals who have faced their inner demons alone because they felt that asking for help would mark them as weak or broken. It's a story that countless Americans know all too well. The reality is that mental health struggles don't discriminate. Whether you live in a bustling city or a quiet town, whether you're a student or a CEO, the weight of emotional pain is universal. Yet, the narrative around it remains isolated, with far too few speaking up and far too many suffering in silence. There's a real danger in this. When we don't acknowledge the complexity of human emotions, when we don't foster spaces where people can share their vulnerabilities without fear of judgment, we create a culture of isolation. We send a message that it's okay to hide behind a mask, to pretend that everything is okay, even when it isn't. The deeper we bury our emotions, the more we risk losing touch with our true selves. Now, let's take a closer look at something that many people don't talk about enough: emotional manipulation. It can be as subtle as a compliment, or as blatant as gaslighting, but its impact can be devastating. Emotional manipulation is a tool used by those who seek control, who thrive on the emotional imbalance of others. And its effects are far-reaching, often trickling into our most intimate relationships, as well as our professional lives. In the workplace, we often encounter manipulative behavior disguised as leadership or mentorship. A boss who praises you one day and criticizes you the next, leaving you second-guessing your own abilities. A partner who tells you they love you, yet consistently undermines your confidence with sharp, cutting remarks. These actions erode your self-worth over time, leaving you questioning your own judgment and abilities. But why does emotional manipulation have such a profound impact? Because it targets our sense of self. It exploits our vulnerabilities, our fears, and our desires for approval and love. It creates an environment where we become dependent on the manipulator's validation, often sacrificing our own needs and desires in the process. And because emotional manipulation is often so subtle, it's easy for victims to convince themselves that it's just part of the relationship, that they're imagining things, or that they deserve it. This is why it's crucial to recognize these patterns early on. Once we identify the signs of emotional manipulation, we can take steps to protect our mental and emotional health. It's about reclaiming our autonomy and recognizing that we don't need to tolerate behavior that diminishes our sense of self. But what happens when these issues, mental health struggles and emotional manipulation, aren't addressed? They don't just disappear. Instead, they compound, often leading to a dangerous spiral of depression, anxiety, and feelings of helplessness. And these issues affect more than just the individual. They affect communities, workplaces, and families. When we allow toxic behaviors to persist unchecked, we create an environment that normalizes harm. This is why it's so critical to challenge these societal norms. We must redefine what it means to be strong. Strength is not about suppressing emotions or enduring pain in silence. True strength is acknowledging our struggles, seeking help when needed, and advocating for a culture of empathy and support. It's about breaking the silence and creating a society that values mental health as much as physical health. Now, let's look at the impact of this shift. Imagine a world where people are encouraged to express their emotions without shame, where mental health is treated with the same urgency as physical health, where emotional manipulation is no longer tolerated, and where individuals can thrive without fear of being controlled or gaslighted. This is the world we need to create. and it starts with each one of us. The journey toward this change doesn't come easily. It requires not only a shift in individual perspectives but also a collective effort to reshape societal norms. And to do that, we must begin by looking at how these societal pressures infiltrate our daily lives, often without us even realizing it. These pressures are woven into the fabric of our culture, so much so that they can feel like an undeniable part of who we are. From the way we're taught to the way we're expected to behave, we're constantly being told that our worth is determined by our external accomplishments. Let's think about the traditional path to success: graduating from school, getting a job, climbing the corporate ladder, and acquiring material wealth. This formula, while it works for some, often leaves many feeling lost, unfulfilled, and disconnected from their true selves. It's a model that rewards conformity over individuality, achievement over well-being, and appearance over authenticity. And in this cycle, we're constantly chasing something we're told will bring us happiness, only to realize that it often leaves us feeling emptier than before. One stark example of this is the pressure placed on young adults. In their pursuit of success, many are overwhelmed by the expectation to excel academically, enter competitive careers, and maintain a facade of perfection. But beneath this pressure lies a generation grappling with mental health crises, burnout, and the increasing inability to connect meaningfully with others. The idea of doing it all has become a badge of honor, yet it's also a major source of distress. The narrative that success equals happiness is so deeply ingrained that it becomes nearly impossible to see another path forward, one that doesn't demand constant self-sacrifice. Consider the widespread experience of burnout. People across all walks of life, from corporate professionals to artists, are feeling the effects of chronic overwork. Burnout isn't just about being tired, it's about feeling disconnected from your purpose, questioning your worth, and becoming disillusioned by a system that seems designed to drain you rather than uplift you. It's a trap that many people fall into, thinking that if they just work a little harder, if they just push through, they'll eventually feel satisfied. But in reality, burnout only deepens the sense of isolation and dissatisfaction. This, however, is where we must start questioning the very definition of success. If we define success solely by outward achievements, we fail to account for the internal toll that such a mindset takes on a person. True success, I believe, should be measured by emotional well-being, personal fulfillment, and the strength to pursue one's own authentic path, free from societal constraints. This is a concept that is rarely discussed but is crucial for a healthy, balanced life. At the same time, we must consider how these pressures intersect with our personal relationships. Many of us are raised to believe that relationships, whether romantic or platonic, should follow certain scripts. We are taught to idealize love as something that is perfect, all-consuming, and flawless. But this idealized vision of relationships can often lead to disappointment and unrealistic expectations. People fall into relationships thinking they can fix each other or that the right partner will magically solve their problems. However, the reality is that healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, communication, and growth, elements that can only thrive when we acknowledge our vulnerabilities. Unfortunately, the concept of vulnerability is another area where societal expectations create conflict. Vulnerability is often seen as weakness, yet it is essential for authentic connection. In a culture that values strength and independence, many people hesitate to show their true selves, fearing judgment or rejection. But without vulnerability, relationships lack depth, and individuals are left feeling disconnected and isolated. The paradox here is clear. We are told to be strong and independent, yet it's in our moments of vulnerability that we form the deepest, most meaningful connections. And this truth, when realized, can be liberating. By allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, we create space for others to do the same, fostering an environment where authenticity and emotional connection thrive. This is the foundation of genuine relationships, whether with a partner, friends, or even within our own communities. Ultimately, the process of unlearning these societal pressures and redefining success and vulnerability is a personal and collective journey. It requires the courage to challenge norms, to speak up about mental health, to recognize toxic behaviors, and to embrace the idea that our worth is not determined by our external achievements. We need to embrace a new narrative, one that prioritizes emotional well-being and personal authenticity over superficial success and societal validation. This journey is not easy, and it won't happen overnight. But each step we take toward this new narrative is a step toward a healthier, more connected world. A world where we no longer have to hide behind masks, where we can be our true selves without fear of judgment, and where our worth is measured not by what we achieve, but by who we are. It's important to recognize that the journey of challenging societal expectations is not a linear one. It's messy, uncomfortable, and often met with resistance, not just from others, but from within ourselves. Change requires us to confront deeply ingrained beliefs and habits that have shaped our understanding of success, relationships, and self-worth. For many, the very idea of stepping away from societal norms can feel like a betrayal, as though rejecting the prescribed path means rejecting the values that have defined us. However, this rejection doesn't have to be seen as a loss. Instead, it's an opportunity to reclaim our autonomy and redefine what matters most to us. The road to authenticity is paved with moments of discomfort, but it also holds the potential for profound personal growth. Imagine a world where people are no longer afraid to question the status quo, where we embrace the complexities of our emotions and experiences, rather than suppressing them to fit into a mold. Take, for example, the growing movement toward prioritizing mental health in the workplace. Companies are starting to recognize the importance of creating environments that support their employees' emotional well-being. This shift represents a significant change in how we think about success, moving away from the traditional view that employees should be productivity machines, to a more holistic approach that values the individual as a whole. But this transformation isn't happening in isolation. It's part of a larger societal shift in which more and more people are pushing back against the demands of a system that thrives on overwork and burnout. Of course, this shift isn't without its challenges. For one, the stigma surrounding mental health issues still persists in many industries and communities. The fear of being labeled as weak or incapable can prevent individuals from seeking help when they need it most. But as more people speak out and share their stories, the hope is that mental health will become a priority, not just in the workplace, but in all aspects of society. Consider the rise in popularity of mindfulness and self-care practices in recent years. These concepts, which were once viewed as frivolous or self-indulgent, are now seen as essential tools for managing stress, improving emotional well-being, and fostering personal growth. The embrace of mindfulness, yoga, therapy, and other forms of self-care signals a shift away from the notion that we must constantly be productive and on the go. Instead, these practices encourage us to slow down, listen to our bodies, and nurture our emotional health, something that is often neglected in a society that values speed and achievement above all else. Yet, even as these ideas gain traction, we must be mindful of how they are marketed and commodified. There's a fine line between promoting self-care as a genuine tool for well-being and turning it into yet another product to be sold. In a consumer-driven society, self-care can sometimes feel like just another trend to capitalize on. True self-care goes beyond purchasing the latest wellness product or attending a trendy yoga class. It involves taking time to reflect on our values, our relationships, and our emotional needs, and then acting in ways that honor those truths. As we continue to navigate these shifting cultural landscapes, it's clear that the way forward lies in reimagining what it means to live a fulfilling life. This reimagining requires us to let go of outdated ideals and embrace new ways of being that prioritize emotional health, self-awareness, and meaningful connection. It's about creating a world where success is no longer defined by external markers, but by the quality of our relationships, the depth of our personal growth, and our ability to live authentically. This process of change won't be easy, and it won't be quick. But every step we take toward embracing authenticity, challenging societal norms, and fostering emotional well-being brings us closer to a more compassionate and resilient world. A world where we are no longer bound by the narrow confines of what we've been told is possible, and instead, we can create lives that are deeply meaningful, grounded in our true selves. Thank you for being part of this journey with Psychic Station. Share your feedback in the comments below. Your voice helps shape our journey forward. See you in the next video.